Now that I've gotten up here, how do I get back down? I know when I started flying lessons, one of the things I worried about was landings. These are probably the toughest things to get right. We practice landings a lot. Not all of them are great, some of them are bumpy. Like lots of things, the only way to get better is to practice lots. Just looked at my logbook, and after 14 and a half hours of flying, I've got 59 landings. So this video, I've got about 12 landings and one missed approach that we're going to take a quick look at. For the first landing of the day, I'm landing at runway 26 at Tallinn. Flaps are extended at 20 degrees, and I'm having a little bit of difficulty maintaining centerline. Below me you can see the parallel stripes or piano keys that mark the threshold. We can't land before the threshold. The next set of stripes marks the start of the touchdown zone, and the thick stripes mark where our aiming point is. As I cross over the threshold, I'll cut the power. And I still want to keep a 70 knot approach speed, so I pitch down a bit. As I get closer to the ground, I round out, and then I'm going to flare, pitching up a bit so that I touch down on my main gear first. This adds a fair amount of drag, so you might hear the stall horn. And I'm on the ground, and we get to do this all over again. For the next landing, I'm a bit higher than I should be, and carrying a bit more speed than I want, so I pull it back on power a little bit to adjust. Early in training, it's kind of difficult to manage the altitude and the speed and the maintaining the center line at the same time. I cross over the threshold and bring the power back to idle. You're not going to hear the stall horn on this landing because I've got too much energy. I float up a little bit here because of ground effect, and I land a little bit further down the runway than I wanted to. So it's time to get back in the air and make the next landing better. But again, I'm higher and faster than I want to be. Just goes to show how important a consistent approach is to setting up a smooth landing. For this one, once it's clear that I'm going to make the runway, I cut the power a little bit earlier so that I can get down quicker. You can see I round out earlier as well and float way down the runway. The stall horn goes off and I land with a thud. For this one, I'm much better on height and speed, but I get a little bit sideways at the end of the landing. As before, I cut power over the threshold. Try to correct too much to the right because I was drifting left. And then I try to correct a bit more. And I end up landing sideways. Though I'm a little bit high on this one, it ends up being one of the smoother landings of the session. I cut power over the threshold. Stay pretty close to center line. I round out a little bit late, but it's okay. Bit more flare, and then I'm down fairly smoothly. It's always great when the last landing of the day is the smoothest, and this is just one of those cases. I'm right on height, I'm a little bit fast, but it's going to turn out alright in the end. I cut power a little bit before the threshold. And I touched down right about at the 1,000-foot markers. A couple days bit later and I'm right back at it. This time I'm experimenting with some different camera positioning. This way you can see the cockpit and the controls. Started the video just before I extend flaps to landing, so you can see as we pass over a busy highway just before the airport. I cut power a little bit before the threshold, and I'm going to land a little bit short here. I'm well left of the center line, but still okay for early landing. We use flaps when landing because they gave us more lift so that we can land at a slower speed without stalling the plane. They also add drag, so it makes it easier to slow the plane as well. This time I cut power just over the threshold. That pitch down to maintain 70 is scary. And I round out. And hold the plane off from landing. And I drop with a bit of a thump again. Tallinn's not a particularly busy international airport, but it is still an international airport. I overshot my final here because I was paying attention to traffic, and that traffic's right on the runway. Pay attention to the plane marked with the blue arrow, because he's going to become important. He's been instructed to exit on Echo, which is the taxiway just to the left. I can't get my landing clearance until he's clear of the runway. ATC tries to sequence us so that we don't have these kind of conflicts, but there's a lot of different kinds of planes with different capabilities, and sometimes they take a while to get off the runway. I can't exactly brake to let him off, so we just need to wait and see if he's off before ATC tells us to go around. And ATC has told us to go around. Just as we start go around, we see that he is now clear of the runway. This landing's a bit unique too. ATC has told us to make a short approach because there's incoming traffic behind us. Tower wants us to get down and then out of the way before the traffic comes in. Short approaches are also useful because it's how we practice engine out. In both cases, we want to get to the runway quick. I start descending a little bit earlier and make a sweeping turn over towards the threshold. Instead of making my base turn at 45 degrees from the threshold, I make it directly a beam threshold. We've asked ATC for a long landing so that they don't get upset with us when we land outside of the touchdown zone. And I'm going to line up my final. It feels very different turning final and being this close to the runway. A turn this low is also kind of nervous as well. But I'm lined up more or less with center. I'm obviously high on profile because I made my turn early. But ATC has told us we can make a long landing and we've got a very long runway, so we should be plenty good. I need to pick a different aiming point because I'm obviously not going to land on my normal aiming point. But then this is a little bit challenging to also maintain center, but I come right back to the center here. And as it turns out, it looks like I'm going to make a reasonable landing still within the touchdown zone. After two landings that are a little bit out of the ordinary, it's nice to come back to just a plain old ordinary landing. I start a little bit left of the center line, but I'm going to pull it back to the center before I land. I'm going to pull back on the throttle just over the threshold and fly it all the way down. As the ground feels like it's rushing up towards me, I round out and I hold it, hold it, hold it, and touch down just before the 1,000-footers. I see two red happy lights, so I should be good on height here. This time when I cut power over the threshold, I'm going to pitch down a little bit more than is comfortable. It takes a while to get used to exactly what the right pressure on the controls is. In the end, it isn't great, but I got a bit of a hard landing and it's time to go again, so can't worry about that too much right now. This is going to be the last landing of the day and I'm set up beautifully. Maybe a little bit high, but I'm doing okay. It's always great when I can end on a high note. I love a nice smooth landing to end the afternoon. Again, I'm a little bit left of the center line, but that will come with time. Cut the power over the threshold and bring it back down. It'll land a little bit short of the 1,000-footers on this one, but it's fairly smooth. I'll take that.